Well, good morning, Southern Oregon, and welcome to the Real Estate Show. I'm Alice Lema. I'm your host today. I'm a broker at John L. Scott Real Estate here in beautiful Southern Oregon. And we've got a great show for you today. And before we talk about that, I just want to acknowledge 1st of October. Here we are. The seasons are changing. We had a little bit of rain. The smoke is gone. Yay, yay. But we still have a shortage of houses to sell, especially in the price range under 500,000. And we're also watching a lot of price changes. Some of that is seasonal and some of that is because we're finally starting to get more listings. So I want you to stay tuned for the end of the show because we're going to do a market watch segment and we're going to talk about not only the transition factors that we're monitoring very carefully, but also some of the huge equity gains that Americans have received during this last year and a half, in some cases over 20% in some parts of the country. And we've seen that happen here. So we have a lot of profit taking. We have a lot of moving around. We're still getting a lot of relocators here in Southern Oregon that want to be here and enjoy our beautiful weather and our friendly small town atmosphere. But we also have a lot of people moving out. If you try to get a moving truck going from the West Coast to the Midwest or the East Coast, they're charging folks twice as much as to bring a truck back. So all these trends are factoring into our Southern Oregon market. And we're going to talk about that in our segment 4 for our market watch. So stay tuned to that. Today, we're happy to have a very exciting guest. We have Mr. Travis Hand. He is the founder and the owner of Rogue Inspection Services. And he's going to be on the show today talking about how to get ready for the transition season, the fall, the winter. He's going to give us some tips on some things you can do to your home and your property to get ready. But you know what else? He's also going to give us some tips on what not to do, because the what not to do list is important as well. So we have a very interesting interview with Mr. Travis Hand today. He's the founder and owner of Rogue Inspection Services. We're so excited to have him on. So stay tuned. We have a great show for you today. Want to thank the sponsors. We have John L. Scott here in Southern Oregon. We have the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors, and we have Guy Giles, Mutual of Omaha Mortgage. So very lucky to have those sponsors. Thank you. Appreciate you so much. So do not touch that dial. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back to the Real Estate Show, folks. I'm Alice Lema here, your host for today. I'm a broker at John L. Scott here in Southern Oregon, and we're just absolutely delighted to talk to one of our favorite home inspectors, Travis Hand of Rogue Inspections. Good morning. Good morning, Travis. How are you?
Morning. I'm doing good. How are you, Alice?
Good. So why don't we just take a minute and just tell the listening audience a little bit about Rogue Inspections and kind of what you guys offer?
Yeah, so Travis with Rogue Inspection Services, we're kind of a full service home inspection company here in Southern Oregon. We've expanded outside of that area a little bit, but primarily focused here in Southern Oregon. That's where our main office is. We do everything from home inspections, pre-listing inspections, sewer line inspections, mold test. We recently got into radon, which was more common in the Eugene area. But we do have some small requests in this area. So we just try to provide that full service, keep your transaction moving type of a deal for all of our real estate agents and customers.
Wow. So that really is kind of one-stop shopping. That's very unique, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. Basically, all we can't do at this point is well flow testing and septic inspections. But we do have some great partners in that division to try to speed that process up as well.
Oh, that's great. Wow, that's fabulous. So when you said radon up in Eugene, does that mean that you have service provided up there?
Yes, we have an inspector that covers that area. So
wow. What areas do you cover? Because that's a big area from here to there.
Exactly. So right now we're at Eugene, south down to Redding. And then we're from the coast over to Klamath Falls, or just outside of Klamath Falls.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So that's kind of our service area at this point.
Wow. How many inspectors do you have?
7 currently.
That's great.
We're looking to bring on a couple more. So if you know anybody, let me know.
Okay, so little employment blurb there, folks.
Yeah,
Anybody
exactly.
wants to be an inspector for Rogue Inspection Services? Call one of us. So, well, let's go back to just basics, because here we are, the end of September, early October. The weather's changing, and there's a lot of stuff that a lot of us should be doing with our homes, and we kind of don't. So, I'm just kind of curious, what do you recommend as a home inspector that people consider doing this time of year?
So just some general home maintenance would be great. Keeping vegetation trimmed back from your houses and preventing any of that moisture. Just taking a good look around the exterior of your home before we start to get into that wet, cold season. Checking to make sure there isn't any joints that need to be resealed. Anything that can help prevent that deterioration of the outside of your house. Another good thing to do would be kind of check your windows, make sure they're sealed properly, make sure you don't have any failed seals. Maybe it's time to get some windows replaced. That may be able to help with that R value just a little bit inside the house. Even the visibility as that temperature starts to fluctuate high from low in the morning to warmer in the afternoon, you will start to see that condensation build up in your windows. So good thing to check there, good time to notice that happening. Definitely want to check your insulation if you feel like you could do some insulation improvements this time of year to kind of save on that heating and cooling expense, especially as we're starting to see the cost of natural gas rise. It may be worth putting a little insulation in your attic, even under your floor system. So definitely worth looking at there. And a lot of areas this time of year do start to see an elevation in the water table to where we're starting to see more water in the crawl spaces. So definitely, if that's not something you do on a regular basis, I would at least recommend popping your head down into your crawl space during late fall, winter months, and make sure it's not full of water because that can be a big issue. So
Yeah,
just
and
a
even
couple
just a little bit
recommendations.
of water, can
Yep,
be problematic.
exactly.
So the insulation, that can be kind of tricky because don't you need to actually go under the house to see?
You can typically tell from your attic hatch if you don't have insulation, it's going to be pretty obvious. And if you really want a full evaluation, you would need to go under there because there may be some areas of the house that don't have it and some that do.
Hmm.
But that's something we can do. We can do specific kind of systemized inspections. Like if you want just your crawl space inspected, we have a lower fee and we just check that out for you, attic, crawl space, whatever. We try to help in those certain areas, even for homeowners and maintenance, just making sure that they can identify an issue before it causes larger issues. So we can help out with that. A contractor can help out with that, whatever works best for your budget, and if who you know may be able to just kind of give you some pointers in that area as well.
Yeah, boy, I think that's a great idea to have instead of the whole inspection, just to maybe have somebody come and do the attic and the roof and the windows and just kind of see, because not all of us know exactly what to look for. Although, if your insulation is completely hanging on the ground, that's obvious.
Right. Yep.
But there's
And
other Yeah, but there's other things like sometimes there's minor rodent infestation and it's not super obvious. What would somebody look for in that?
yeah, so this time of year, as the weather starts to get colder, your rodents are going to look for warm spots or places to kind of insulate themselves, which is usually in the insulation of your attic or crawl space. So one thing you really want to pay attention to is any access points where your air conditioner lines go into your house. Crawl
Oh,
space
yeah.
vents, usually those will get popped out. Those are really, really good entry places for rodents. So if you do see those open or even a size of a quarter, a dime, anything where you can get rodents into. We want to make sure we get those sealed up this time of year. That will prevent large issues from happening down the road. Insulation getting torn up. I'm seeing houses that have water lines chewed into. So
Really?
definitely want to make sure we keep the rodents out of the house.
Yeah. So, we have a certain number of vacant houses, people that have already moved out, they haven't sold, or they're in between tenants. What's the danger of not winterizing those? What should people be looking for if they're not going to be living there?
So winterizing is depends how long you're going to be vacant. I mean, if you're going to be gone all winter, it would definitely be worth shutting off your water, possibly turning off your gas, just to make sure that there isn't going to be any mishaps, or at least make sure somebody's checking on your house if you are going to be vacant. If it's going to be for a short period of time, even just turning off your water is pretty simple. Usually there's a box right at the street where you can get that shut off, and it's not going to hurt anything. You just kind of get the air out of your lines when you come back. So that's a pretty simple task there. Other than that, if it's short term, not much you need to worry about. But yeah, definitely make sure for your situation that you are taking care of your house, and making sure at least somebody's checking on it if you're gone, or if you're gone long term, that you are taking those proper steps to make sure nothing will happen while you're gone.
Yeah, I guess, there's a certain number of folks that are still snowbirding. So if they're going to be gone for, let's say, from November to April, that's almost half a year.
Yep. So at that point, I would contact your local utility company. Usually the city can come out, shut your water off for you. And you can also contact Avista. They'll come out and shut your gas off. There are really easy ways to do it. If you're aware, you don't have to contact them, but even if you don't, they'll come out and they'll take care of it for a very low fee, or even free. I'm not sure how they do that, but
yeah, so no excuses, right?
Exactly. Yeah, there are people that will do that at very low cost, and it's worth it to save money from those damages that could happen in your absence.
So one of my pet peeves is gutters, because if you don't take care of your gutters, you can cause so many problems down the road. Can you just talk a little bit about what happens to houses and foundations and stuff like that if you don't take care of your gutters?
So gutters are the primary source of moving that water away from your foundation. So as that water comes off of your roof, it goes into your gutters and it moves it away from that foundation, which keeps it out of your crawl space and prevents that soil from settling underneath the foundation. So typically you've got two sorts of consolidation of the soil. You've got the primary consolidation, which happens within the first 3 to 5 years, where basically those air pockets move out of the soil, and then everything stops moving after that. Secondary consolidation would be like a constant source of moisture, which continues to compact that soil, and those can cause your foundation issues. So in order to prevent that secondary consolidation, we move that water away from the foundation with the gutter system. And that's going to prevent settling, foundation issues, all of that stuff down the road. Another thing is, with your gutters getting plugged up with all of that debris, it tends to turn into a big fire risk in the spring and summertime, because that's usually where those embers are going to catch, is in that gutter. And that's where that's going to ignite. So even if you do have foliage, having that gutter guard is going to be a huge benefit to you. If you don't want to clean your gutters that much, a gutter guard is going to keep those clean and allow water to come into your gutter. Check your gutters to make sure they're not hanging off the house. Make sure they're tightly secured against that fascia or rafter tail. And then just kind of take a look after a rainfall to make sure you don't have any points that are leaking. None of your seams are leaking. Downspouts are flowing and you see water coming out. Just those small preventative things after the first couple of rains here this season will make a big difference moving forward in how the maintenance of your house goes.
Yeah, it's really interesting because sometimes we're showing houses and you can feel the floor is uneven. And sometimes that's just a floor, especially if it's an older house, but sometimes it's the foundation. If you go outside and look, a lot of times you can just see that's where the gutter has been broken, and it's so long it's rusty or deteriorated or something like that.
You'll see a couple new cracks in the corner where that downspout's supposed to be draining water away from the house. So it does make a big difference.
Yeah, note to self, look around the outside and see if the gutters are okay. So there's a bunch of people that should not be on ladders cleaning their gutters, and those gutter guards, I forgot about those are great.
Yeah, they do a great job. And then there's lots of companies that do gutter cleaning as well. So again, that a couple $100 to get your gutters cleaned is well worth saving.
And not fall off the ladder. Yeah.
Foundation repairs, a hospital visit.
Right. If you can even get into the hospital.
Exactly.
So, okay. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about the outside was moss, because in Southern Oregon, a lot of us have moss on some part of our roof.
Hmm.
And so I've watched people try to hose it off, sweep it off. What are you supposed to do? What's the
So
proper way?
definitely don't just go up there and start hacking away at your moss. You want to make sure you have a professional if you're not familiar with the process. You can buy moss killers at hardware stores to first kill the moss. And then you can go up there with a hose and go downhill and just kind of wash it off. Don't use a power washer unless you know what you're doing. I wouldn't recommend sweeping it unless you know what you're doing, just because you don't want to damage the granules. Trying to remove that moss and then having to repay for a roof because you knocked off a lot of those granules is not worth it.
So
So definitely make
the
sure you
little
know what you're
things on
doing.
top actually are important. Those little
Yep,
sandy pieces.
exactly. We don't want to knock those off trying to get moss off the roof. So, but even just doing that spray on a cooler day with no moisture, spray your roof down with a moss killer. You can even use like a bleach mixture and make sure that dies, and then eventually it'll just fall off on its own, or it will at least continue to, or not continue to grow. So, a couple ways to take care of that there.
Great. Well, we've got to take a quick break for our sponsors. We're talking to Travis Hand of Rogue Inspection Services. We'll be right back. Don't touch that dial. Well, welcome back to the Real Estate Show. I'm Alice Lema, your host here today. I'm with John L. Scott Real Estate here in Southern Oregon. And just a reminder, this broadcast will be repeated tomorrow at 6 p.m. And you will get to hear Travis Hand, who we're talking to today. He's the founder and owner of Rogue Inspection Services here locally. And during the break, we were just talking a little bit about what kind of houses he's getting to look at lately with the shortage of inventory on the market. So Travis, you've got your hands full with some of these older fixer-uppers, don't you?
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff on the market, and that is selling currently with the shortage of houses, and it's kind of been consistent throughout the summer where you're seeing a lot of houses that have been really kind of run down, where you're seeing almost full guts, full renovations that need to be done, and it is taking a kind of a toll on the inspectors a little bit because they feel like they've got to do every single thing they find. And I mean, we're spending 4 or 5 hours on some of these houses when our
Oh,
typical
wow.
inspection takes about 3 hours. So we are seeing a
Mhm.
lot more of that, but hopefully start to get a few more houses on the market here or decrease that inventory and get the morale of my guys back up. But
Yeah,
that's one thing we are starting to notice is we're picking up a lot more mold on some of these bad houses.
really.
Tons of roofs that need to be replaced all the way through the sheathing because they haven't been taken care of for so long. So
Oh my gosh. So the sheathing is the wood underneath all
the
of
wood under
the
the shingles. Yep.
yeah, wow. So
Yep.
that
I
that must
believe.
be some pretty bad damage.
Yeah, I think we did at least step through one roof this year with total deterioration.
Oh no.
So
Was the
there's,
inspector okay?
yeah, caught himself and everything, but just can be a little tricky at times, especially when you're up there walking the roofs and that roof is deteriorated. It can be dangerous. So
Oh, that is so
just
scary.
precautions
So
at this point, but
yeah, yeah. So
the fun stuff.
that's another good point. See, I'm a big fan of people getting their homes inspected like every 5 or 10 years, even if they're not selling.
Definitely worth it. Just because things can happen. I mean, something starts leaking in your crawl space and you don't ever go in your crawl space.
Right.
Just a small inspection and then a plumber's fee compared to a large expense down the road if more damage happens and you have to replace a subfloor or anything like that. So it is worth it just to do that maintenance inspection. Even if you're handy yourself, just reach out to us. We have a checklist you can go through. You don't always have us do the inspection, but we do try to help out the community in that sense where your home maintenance is important. It helps you keep your value of your home and what you've invested in up there where it should be rather than deteriorating. So we're definitely wanting to help people make sure they take care of their assets.
Oh, that's nice. So you actually post your checklist. That's great.
Yeah, Yep. So we've got one. If you're looking at putting your house on the market, if you want just like a maintenance checklist, we post a seasonal checklist every quarter on our Facebook. If you want to follow that, just kind of some tips and points that you should look through and make sure you're taken care of. So
That's great. So seasonal. So this season, you mentioned gutters. You said something about joints on the outside. What were you meaning by that?
yeah, so corners of your houses, where your siding tends to meet, making sure those are sealed. A lot of times that's one of the biggest things we see in our inspections is just deteriorated sealant on the exterior. With the intense sunlight, especially on the south and west side, you start to get that cracking in your sealants. So those are water entry points. Just making sure that we keep the siding in good shape, because a lot of that MDF or engineered wood siding can start to swell and look bad after a while and then start to dry rot. So just to prevent a siding replacement down the road, a little bit of caulking will go a long ways.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. So roof, gutter, siding, get the plants trimmed away. What else do you recommend this time of year?
Yeah, just make sure no road and entry points, because that can cause a big issue. We discussed that a little bit earlier. And then, yeah, just making sure if you've got a wood burning fireplace, I would just take a good look at that. Make sure if you haven't cleaned it in a while, you're getting somebody out there to clean your fireplace. I know the chimney sweeps, last I checked, are quite a ways out. So if that is something that you do, make sure you get on their schedule right away, because it may be a month or two before they can get to you. But make sure all of your wood burning fireplaces are ready to go. If you need to get a gas fireplace ready to go, I've met quite a few people who aren't sure how to work them, especially moving into a new home. So make sure you do know how to work your alternative heat sources, just in case you need them at some point.
In case the electricity goes out, you mean?
Yep, exactly. And even if you do have a gas burning fireplace, make sure you know how to light it without the electronic igniter and stuff. So
okay. I didn't even know you could light it without the electronic.
Some you can, and some are a little tricky. So it just kind of depends on what system you have. So,
okay, so Google that.
Yeah.
Practice.
Yeah. Check your owner's manual. Hopefully, most of them are still there underneath. But make sure you know how to work that stuff.
That's very good advice. I hadn't even thought of that. So, what about the heating and cooling system?
Heating and cooling systems, typically, we say they get about 15 to 25 years of life, depending on how old they are, or what brand they are. If you haven't serviced that in the last 10 years, definitely I would recommend doing that at least every year before you get a change of seasons. So making sure air conditioner is operating as efficiently as possible before summer comes, it's going to put less strain on that unit, and typically it will help it last longer. Same goes for your gas furnace. Getting that serviced every year, you're just going to prevent that from working overtime, and it's going to help that system go longer as well. One of the other big things you can do is change your air filters, making sure they're not plugged, making sure you have good airflow through the system, because as that system gets restricted, it does have to work harder to pull that air through, and then that will cause issues down the road, and shorten the lifespan of that unit as well. So changing those air filters is a big thing.
I don't think people understand. Say that again. If you don't change your filters, it hurts the system.
It does. It hurts the system. So when you restrict that airflow through the system, it's actually causing that system to work harder. So it's going to shorten the lifespan because it's not operating as efficiently as it should. So definitely want to make sure, change those air filters at least every season. Every 3 months, I would change it, if not sooner. So we just came off of a little bit of smoke here for the last couple months. That tends to get those filters dirty really quickly. So if you haven't changed those filters, now that things have cleared up, I would go do that right now. Get that taken care of and get some fresh air coming through that system again.
That's great advice. Yeah, I remember just being shocked when I learned that it actually stresses the system out. It's the filters are not just to keep you breathing clean, which is good too. So,
Yeah,
but speaking of which, ductwork sometimes has little particles and dust and stuff in it. So, what do you suggest? Like, how do you even find out what you've got going on in your ductwork?
So there are a couple different ways. If you haven't cleaned it, if you bought a new house and you're probably time to clean it, because I'm guessing it hasn't been done for a while. Ductwork's fairly inexpensive to get that cleaned out. So definitely worth it every couple of years, because you do have, especially if you have pets, your skin dander, all of that type of stuff, like dead skin cells, all of that rotates throughout your house and does go through your ductwork. So especially if you have allergies, it's worth getting that cleaned out. Maybe $300-400 to get it cleaned out each year, and then that helps keep stuff from moving throughout your house. There are several times where we find rodents chewing through the ductwork, especially if it's down in the crawl space. So definitely worth getting that crawl space checked out. That is one thing you want to make sure. Even open your vents registers every so often to see, make sure you don't see any pieces of insulation trying to come up through that when your air is moving.
Oh, that's
that
a
would
good
be a
tip.
good indication that something chewed through the insulation, and now there's rodent feces, urine stuff in your ductwork. We want to get that taken care of so you're not breathing in those toxins.
Yeah. So what are the mechanics of the ductwork actually being cleaned? Like, how do they do that?
So typically it's like a little, they've got an air hose that blows air. And then they've also got like a little whip that spins around with that air hose, and it just kind of knocks all the dust down, and then that air blows it out. So
Oh,
they'll
okay.
typically seal it off at one point and then just clean it throughout the whole system.
Oh,
And
okay.
make sure they get all
Okay.
that dust out of there. So it's
Okay.
pretty cool.
Yeah. People ask me all the time. I thought, well, maybe a little vacuum. I don't know.
Yeah, typically it's an air system. They'll blow it out, and then they've got a little brush that kind of spins around with that air and whips the sides of the ductwork to push all of that dust out and knock it all out. So
And the other thing is if you've done any remodeling, because there's construction dust, right?
yep.
And even if you've cleaned your house, there might be dust still in the
Everywhere.
system everywhere.
No matter how much you seal that off, you get dust everywhere. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's really weird. Is it just, yeah.
Yeah, because that drywall dust is really fine. It can travel all over the place.
So, okay, so that's kind of a pretty long list, but I'm wondering if we fast forward to spring real quick, like what's the list for spring? What should we calendar to do in the spring? Since we're going to get ready, put it on our calendar.
Yeah. Springtime, you can get into the warmer weather. You're going to want to start opening your windows up. So maybe a good time to check all your screens. If you need like a screen replacement, there's a couple stores. I know the glass stores around town take care of that. Blackbird will do screen replacements. So maybe a good time to get those repaired so you can open your windows. If you start to open and close your windows and you notice they're kind of off-centered, those balances may be broken. Those are fairly inexpensive to repair as well. So you can fully open and close your window easily with just a small repair there. Making sure your sprinkler system's working, if that is something you have at your house, making sure there's no leaks there. Be a good time, again, just to maybe open up your crawl space, check underneath, make sure that looks good.
So do that a couple times a year.
Yeah, I would recommend it. 2 times a year is good. If you're not nervous about it, more is better. Just to kind of keep an eye on it, at least until you know through the seasons kind of what your area is like. You won't have to do it as much, but definitely worth knowing kind of what's going on under your house, because you do have all of your plumbing, you have your ductwork in most cases. You've got insulation, you've got just the structure of the house. So there's a lot of important things down there. And we really want to make sure nothing major is going on. So,
yeah. So get ready for winter, folks. Travis Hand, Rogue Inspection Services. He's got a checklist on his website. If somebody wants to get a hold of you by phone, where do they call, Travis?
541-507-7674. We've got great office staff that'll take care of you, whatever you need. If you need additional resources or schedule an inspection, they'll take good care of you.
And think about getting your house inspected if you're going to sell next year, don't wait, right?
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you, Travis. We just love having you on the show. Appreciate you so much. Travis Hand, Rogue Inspection Services. We're going to take a quick break, get a word from our sponsors. We're brought to you by John L. Scott of Southern Oregon, Rogue Valley Association of Realtors, and Guy Giles of Mutual Omaha Mortgage. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back to the Real Estate Show, folks. I'm Alice Lema, broker here in Southern Oregon with John L. Scott Real Estate. Want to say thanks again to Travis Hand, the founder and owner of Rogue Inspection Services. That was an absolutely great interview. Lots of fabulous tips for things to do to get ready for the fall and winter. And then again, some things not to do. So you can get a repeat of this interview tomorrow on this radio station, 880 a.m. at 6 o'clock. And and we can also make sure you get hooked up with Travis if you want to get that list downloaded off his website. So in the meantime, we are off to talk about the market. So this is our Market Watch segment. And, it's been another interesting week. We still have kind of low inventory, even though more people are getting their homes on the market. And we're starting to experience the actual throes of the transition. So we have a lot more price reductions, we have more competition, but I'm telling you, it's still a seller's market unless you're in the higher price points. Now, the higher price points for us in Southern Oregon is 800 or $1 million up. That's considered our luxury market. And do you know, in Jackson County alone, we have 159 listings that are $1 million or higher. So that price point is a bona fide buyer's market. And it's very interesting. During a transition, you can watch leading indicators, which would be the more expensive properties, as they start to kind of bellow and have more listings and have more inventory, then that'll start moving down. Traditionally, that'll start moving down. So we'll just have to watch and see if it trickles down into lower price points. But right now, boy, if you're trying to buy something in the 200 to 500 range, you may still have an arm wrestling match on your hand. But we're definitely watching the luxury market because that is where all the good deals are right now. So if you're qualified to buy in that price point, or the lower interest rates make it possible, you might want to look there because it's pretty good hunting right now. Now that we're transitioning into October and the season is changing, we're looking at some studies that are coming out. It's been very interesting with the COVID shutdown, and also here in Southern Oregon, we had the fires, and all of that affected our housing market. So one of the studies that came out recently was talking about what the average United States home buyer looks like right now. And do you know, there are some interesting statistics I want to share with you. So one of the first things that caught my attention is 50% of all average home buyers today encountered a loan denial. Isn't that shocking? 50%, 50. So the agents here in Southern Oregon, that's not really what we experience, because we get our people ready and pre-approved and all that before we take them out. But if you're looking at a national, then that is 50%. I guess there can be surprises, human nature, things happen. So the other thing that was interesting is, on a national average, buyers wrote 2 offers to get 1 accepted. That's not our experience here in Southern Oregon, but on a national average, buyers wrote 2 offers to get 1 accepted. The other interesting statistic, 61% of the average home buyers out there right now, 61% already owned a home. They had a home in their life in the past. So what that means is that most of these folks, a little over half, are seasoned buyers, or at least done it one other time. But that also means there's a big section out there, 39%, 40%, that either didn't because they're first time home buyers, or they might be investors. So it's all how you slice the data, right? But I think it's very interesting. So if you're selling, keep in mind that on average, you may have a 60% chance, 61% chance of getting offers from buyers who have done this before. And that's just good to know. The other interesting statistic, under 2,000 square feet, 3-bedroom, under 2,000 square feet. So I would expect that people buying right now might be buying slightly bigger homes just because the interest rates were so low. You can afford more of a house. But nationally speaking, 2,000 square feet or less is what people are going for. The other fascinating study that came out, and this is from CoreLogic, said that homeowners in the United States saw an equity increase on average nationally 29.3% since year over year. So this time last year. So they're saying that that is an equity gain collectively in the United States of $2.9 trillion and an average of $51,000 per homeowner. That's nationally. And that is kind of our experience here in Southern Oregon. We have just buckets of profit since the shutdown. And we have still people moving here from all parts of the country, but we also have a lot of people moving out. They're taking their profit and they're going somewhere else. Some of these are business owners. Some of these are job transfers. A lot of them are remote workers. This whole remote worker thing is starting to settle in. We're starting to see now that we have an ongoing impact of the remote worker, especially the tech workers. And one of the side effects is the demand for vacation homes. One of these other studies that came out recently was that the demand for vacation homes rose 6%. So that means that people are starting to use not only the low interest rates, but this whole idea of we don't want to be in a shutdown again. We don't want to be without our family. Or maybe we're going to buy that vacation home in the place where we're going to retire. We'll do it in a two-step process, and then we can leapfrog when we're ready. And you know what else? They're getting income. They're getting income from vacation rental, short-term rental, maybe long-term rental when they're not using it. So it's all very interesting side effects of the ongoing shutdown and the COVID mandates. The other interesting study that came out, homes are bigger. Now, even though I just said that the average US home buyer, out there right now is looking at under 2,000 square feet, when we're out showing people houses, they're always wanting another room. They're always wanting two other rooms, or they're wanting outbuildings so that they can do their work from home, their office, their conference room, their Zoom, their schooling. We have a lot of folks that are doing either hybrid schooling at home or they're doing 100% homeschooling now. So all of these side effects are affecting what people want to buy so that they can be prepared for whatever is coming in their future. And Southern Oregon is still on a lot of lists because we have generally low crime. We have a mostly accommodating, friendly atmosphere, here. We have high-speed internet. We have a great hospital. Actually, I have two great hospitals and an international airport. So we still get a lot of people who want to move here, but the homes that they're trying to pick, and even the locals, what the homes the locals are trying to pick, are a little bit bigger by 1 or 2 rooms. So if you're getting ready to sell either this winter or into 2022, if there's a way to create these extra spaces, then please do so, because you'll get more buyers and you might get more money. Because according to one of these other studies, we're looking at a permanently doubling of the remote workforce, permanently doubling. So that's going to have a real big impact. So Alice Lema, broker John L. Scott, thank you so much for listening to The Real Estate Show. There'll be another repeat of this show tomorrow on KCMX Radio 880 AM, and that'll be at 6 o'clock tomorrow, Sunday. We want to thank our sponsors, John L. Scott, Southern Oregon, the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors, and Guy Giles, Mutual of Omaha Mortgage. We thank you very much. Appreciate your sponsorship. We'll be back again with another show next week. Make it a great Southern Oregon weekend. Alice Lema saying bye now.